Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live in Mackey Arena, following Purdue's 92-84 win over Yale, a school you'll be surprised to find out did not admit me out of high school, nor did I apply. This is your goldenblack.com rap video following this win. I never know how to finish that sentence. Thank you to the Purdue Union Club Hotel for your support. As always, we appreciate it very much. We will keep this brief today, unlike Matt Painter, who just went 25 minutes or so with his post-game press conference, which, of course, we share responsibility for because we're the ones asking the questions. But anyway, Purdue has to fight to get this one. There were a number of times where it looked like Purdue was one sequence away from blowing this open. But you got to give Yale a lot of respect, credit, whatever, for just kind of hanging around and taking advantage of some of the things Purdue didn't do very well. And having a guy here in John Poulikitis, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce this either, who, in an alternate universe, if there was still a COVID year, and keep in mind that you cannot play a fifth year at an Ivy League school, if there was still a COVID year in college basketball, and thank the heavens there's not, this is a dude who, when he's done with Yale, gets his degree from Yale, presumably. I don't know what his situation is. I can't even pronounce his name. He could have gone on the market, and he could have made a ton of money, and for all we know, he could have been somebody's Dalton Connect next year. He is a good player. He is a really good player, and he made a lot of tough shots in this game to kind of help Yale stick around. But he wasn't the only one. This big kid they have, too, got them off to a really good start. Did not look like an Ivy League player. Looked like a high major basketball player. Bez Bang. Again, I don't know how to pronounce the names. I am sorry to Yale. My apologies to Yale for not being able to pronounce their names. But another kid who looked like a high major player. At least a really good mid-major player. I know Yale's not off to a great start, but they are a good program that has good players, and they really, really were sticky, for lack of a better term, in this game. Purdue just, again, they had it to double digits a number of times, just could not get that stop and then that shot to blow this open and run away and hide. But it doesn't matter. This was a hard-fought win, and the win is what matters, as is the continued improvement this time of year and the exposure of some flaws, of which there are still many in this Purdue team, based on what we've seen so far against three early season bye-game opponents. Again, B-U-Y, not B-Y-E. But just some things to discuss here. Let me start with the negative, because I am inherently a hater. I just kind of veered in this direction of room for improvement. But the turnovers weren't a bulk issue in this game, but there were a number of squandered possessions in the second half. And I'm counting one sequence of two missed free throws in that too. Not technically a turnover, but there were some really sloppy turnovers at a sequence of the game where things could have really gone in Purdue's favor, and this could have not come down to a last 2 minutes that took an hour and a half to play. So the turnovers is going to be an issue every game this year. Not a problem, but something Purdue has to really, really be focused on cleaning up. You're asking Braden Smith to do an awful lot of stuff here. So I think you're going to have to live with some turnovers, but it's just the general stuff where the over and back was weird. The ball thrown across the floor to Fletcher Lawyer, who wasn't looking, was less than ideal. And I don't think the first time we've seen that happen this year either. Just that kind of stuff. Those are possessions that mattered in a game that ended up being relatively close. I mean, Yale had a shot here at the end. It was a 6-point game inside of a minute. Anything can happen in those situations, and it's the old F around and find out. The guy with the, is it a Venn diagram? What do you call that thing? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So the turnover is going to be a constant issue. Purdue is nowhere near where it needs to be defensively right now to compete at a really high level like it has done every November up to this point. Now, comparing this season to all these other seasons, may not necessarily be fair, but that's the standard Purdue is kind of set here. And from a defensive standpoint, they are just not where they need to be to win games like the one coming up Friday night, in my opinion. Purdue has decent enough pieces defensively. I think that there are some limitations. There is a relatively limited ceiling to how good this team can be defensively. And I don't think Daniel Jacobson's loss really changed that all that much. It didn't help, but I don't think it changed things for the worse by a significant margin. It's more about Purdue operating as a team. It's more about Purdue communicating. It's more about cleaner switches, better assignments. The help at the rim has been really, really ugly to this point. Purdue gave up 50 points in the paint to Yale here. That starts with, as I just wrote in the thing below, if you're actually watching this on our website, not YouTube, rim protection comes in many forms. It is blocking shots, it is deterring shots, yes, but it is also containing ball screens. It is containing the dribble in space, and it is helping when the ball gets into the paint and things like that. The best way to protect the rim is to keep the ball the hell away from it, and that's kind of what Purdue is struggling to do. That last line of defense in those rotations is either showing up late or not at all, and that's a team defense issue. That's a communication issue. That's an assignment issue, and it's an area where Purdue has to get much, much, much better from here on out. That's not to say this can't be a team that can just outscore everyone, but you would prefer for that to not have to be the case. Always better to play defense, in my opinion. I'm not saying they're not playing defense. I'm saying that to be good at defense. And right now, Purdue is just nowhere where it needs to be. Some things to highlight here. I think Purdue started this game really well because of Trey Kaufman-Renn, largely. This was the first opponent that really brought double teams against him, and it didn't do it every time. It threw different stuff at him on a possession-to-possession basis, and he picked it apart as a passer to start the game. I think he assisted on 7 early points for Purdue, and in that I'm counting a foul that led to 1 of 2 free throws. So that's not an assist, but it led to points. Just did a really good job recognizing what was happening, responding accordingly, and making the right pass and making it clean. That's going to be a really big deal for him this season, because as his numbers start to add up through the course of these games, and as people start to see on film how influential he's going to be on this team in terms of Purdue's offensive structure, people are going to start game planning for him the way they did for all of Purdue's other alpha post scorers. So for him to be able to make quick decisions and crisp passes to people in position to score without turning the ball over, really, really big deal. I've mentioned this before. Nothing's going to change there. It is a huge responsibility for him this season, and one he has handled very well so far. Never better than he did tonight, because this was the first time I think people really tested him. I think that Fletcher Lawyer going out with 2 early fouls, relatively early fouls, kind of messed Purdue up a little bit from a rotations perspective, maybe threw them a curveball, but when Painter brought him back in with 2 fouls with 6.5 minutes to go in the first half, he really, really took the game over very quietly. He tends to do that. He kind of sneaks up on you, and before you know it, he scored 11 points in 6 minutes, and that's kind of what he did. I don't think I need to bore you with my notes, but just kind of take my word for it. He came back with 6.5 minutes left. He hit 2 running 2-point field goals. He hit a 3. He handed out a hockey assist that led to another 3-point play, and then he hit a 3 right before the halftime buzzer, and that really gave Purdue some separation that obviously it ended up needing in the end. What was it at halftime? I can't even read my notes. This is embarrassing. It was 45-34 at halftime. This would have been probably a much closer game if Fletcher Lawyer hadn't made those many plays he has made. He is having a brilliant season. I know it's only 3 games, and I know much more difficult games lie ahead. But I'm not sure offensively especially you could ask a whole lot more from him than what you've gotten. He is now 9 of 12 from three-point range on the season, I believe, which is pretty good. So if he shoots 90% from 3 this year, Purdue's probably going to win some games. That is obviously not reasonable. But also he was 5 of 7 from the floor overall, 3 assists, turned the ball over twice, but he's been generally pretty good about that. He's drawing fouls. He's playing smart. He's making good decisions. He's getting himself to the free throw line. He's just doing a lot of really, really valuable things offensively for Purdue. He's been steady as hell. He is a real safety blanket for this team. He's one of those guys where you feel pretty good anytime the ball's in his hands. You're going to run stuff for him, but also you're just going to use him when you're kind of freewheeling, playing through the post, playing inside out, playing in your ball screen action, things like that. Just having a great year. If you're reading this, if you're watching this video on goldenblack.com, please read the stuff below. I do write stuff too. I don't just talk on video after games. Hopefully you're doing that. If you're not, I don't want to repeat myself too much here because all this is covered in the written stuff below. But Miles Colvin and Camden Heide, this was a jumping off point game for both of those guys. Miles Colvin's emergence here as a two-way player of late, particularly tonight, is one of the really, really positive things that is happening with this basketball team right now. He is rebounding, he is defending, he's defending a couple different positions, and he's giving you that instant offense off the bench that has mattered in every game this season thus far. But there was a sequence, and check out goldenblack.com tomorrow because I'll break this down on video. But there was a sequence on an inbound that Yale had. I'm pointing at a basket you can't even see. But they had Colvin on the game's signature defensive matchup, the John Pulakaitis. I'm going to pronounce his name differently every time I say it. I'm sure he's used to it by now. But they had Colvin on him, and he was obviously the guy Yale was going to want to get the ball to, and Colvin just completely took him out of the play. They couldn't get the ball to him. They ended up turning the ball over, and Miles Colvin made that play. Miles Colvin had a really, really big boy rebound at the defensive end at one point in time that led to something really positive offensively. I'm not going to bore you by going through my notes here, but just take my word for it. Something really positive happened on offense after he did that. And then Camden Heide, I think, moving Trey Kaufman to center opened up a bit of a lane for him to get out there in a comfortable position, and he was able to make the shots that he wasn't taking or missing earlier in the season, to the extent that there was undue scrutiny on a guy who Purdue doesn't need to score. He needs to be an opportunist. He needs to be a defender and a rebounder and an energy guy. Any offense you get, great, but for him to be that guy who can make that three in that ball screen action the way Mason Gillis did last year, whether he's going to do that all season or not, I don't know, but he made 2 really big ones in this game, both in the second half. Again, both when in a half in which this game got pretty close. Every point mattered. So those 2 threes really, really were big deals. In the moment and then in the final analysis, those were really big plays by Camden Heide, who also is rebounding at a pretty high level. I'll say this about Heide. He's a wing who's going to be playing the 4 some, but he looks like a 4. He doesn't look like a wing anymore. He looks big and muscular and strong, and he looks like a power forward. And I think that's where his most comfortable position is ultimately going to lie. And I think that this was a step in the right direction. I think Purdue is really, really going to want to get more into this Trey Kaufman at the 5 thing. This has become my pet issue, apparently, my pet topic. But that's how Purdue closed the game, and I don't know if they're going to be great defensively in that alignment, but I don't think they're going to be great defensively in any lineup. I always thought Purdue would just err on the side of offense and just roll with it, and that might be what you see kind of from here on out. Not all the time. They're still going to play Will Berg. They're still going to play Caleb First. They're still going to play Raleigh Burgess. But I think you're going to see more and more of Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 5, especially against bigger teams who can, be exploited a little bit at the defensive end by a smaller, more skilled, more versatile scorer in Kaufman-Renn. But that opened up a lot of opportunities for Heide too. And he looked like he fit. I think the first couple of games of the season he was kind of in no man's land between the 3 and the 4, and not your optimal option at either, especially at the 3, because they want to get a third guard out there. And Trey Kaufman-Renn is your 4 right now, and he's one of your 3 best players. So opportunities in that regard were pretty limited, but moving Kaufman-Renn inside opened up a lane for him to produce, and he did. And I think it's something that he can build off of as this expands, presumably, and just a big-time game for him. I should mention that Colvin and Heide combined for 11 rebounds between them, which is pretty damn good. A team that needs to rebound and needs its most athletic players using their athleticism to make a difference. And that's exactly what those guys did. And I said I was going to keep this short, and here we are at 16 and a half minutes. If you watched all of this, you're out of your mind. It is 12:14 a.m., and if you're watching me, go to bed. So that's what I got here from Purdue's 92-84 win over Yale here in Mackey Arena. It's the last game before Alabama comes Friday. That one's going to be tough. Thank you to the Purdue Club Hotel for your support, as always. So I'm Brian Neubert from goldenblack.com. Go check out our site, please. Please, please, please. Don't make me beg. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. And thank you for processing our materials, however it is you process our materials. And I will talk to you guys again late Friday night. You're spending another Friday night with me, you poor souls. Thanks, everybody.